Hello everyone and welcome to a brand new video. Today I will discuss all the weapon changes with the recent update here in Call of Duty Warzone. So of course guys, if you weren't already aware, last night at the time of making this video, the mid-season update for Season 5 did end up going live, and interestingly enough, there was a pretty hefty as well as significant weapon tuning update affecting about a dozen different weapons in this game. So that's what I wanted to discuss. And with that said, if you guys want to enjoy today's video, make sure you leave a like on it down below, as well as subscribe and turn on post notifications so that way you guys will not miss any VLAs from greatest Call of Duty news, class ups, and all kinds of things like that. So without further ado, let's dive right into it. And alright guys, so to start off today's video, I am going to be reading the introductory paragraph in the patch notes discussing their thought process behind nerfing as well as buffing certain weapons. So yeah, let's actually dive right into it, and they go on to state, and I quote, "While assessing the power level of Black Ops Cold War weapons, we have observed some disparities between ease of use and efficacy. The Krig 6 from Black Ops Cold War has shown an impressive performance at just about every engagement range. While we believe it is important to have a wide array of weapons which can be utilized by players of all skill levels, it is critical to the health of the game that their effectiveness scales appropriately with the skill required to wield them. If players can be as effective with a weapon that is pinpoint accurate, that has a marginally slower time to kill potential than the hardest to wield weapons, why would they choose another? As we continue to address these weapons, we will also be making adjustments to Black Ops Cold War attachments that offer recoil control. We feel these changes will provide a fairer, more diverse long-range landscape." And as you can see with the graphic that they provided in the patch notes, of all the 12 weapons that were changed, they really fall into two separate categories, one of them being extreme long-range weapons, for example, rifles like the C58, the M2, the FAL, as well as the Krig 6, and then you also have some weapons falling into the extreme close-range engagements, for example, the Modern Warfare MP5, as well as the OTS-9 submachine gun. So that said, let's actually talk about the changes to certain weapons, starting off with the C58 from Black Ops Cold War, being that its recoil was actually adjusted, and they go on to state, "High damage weapons like the C58 tend to adhere to a lower rate of fire and higher recoil, which generally balances out their hasty time to kill potential. Much like the Krig 6, the C58 was a tad easier to control than we feel is appropriate for a weapon and with its damage profile. While recoil adjusted can be rather nebulous, the exact details of these changes can often be difficult to quantify with numbers alone. While the C58's recoil has been increased slightly, the majority of this change will be felt in the recoil pattern deviation. When this deviation is increased, it can create subtle shifts which become increasingly difficult to compensate for given distances from the target." Now, in addition to the C58, the M2 assault rifle from Black Ops Cold War also got slightly changed, being that the base optic eye position was retracted, and I know that sounds a little bit confusing, however they went on to state, "The EM2 in Black Ops Cold War is not receiving a direct reduction to its efficacy with this change. However, it will result in the base optic being a less suitable substitute for higher magnification optics. This, however, in conjunction with the changes to recoil control barrels, will make the EM2 a slightly less viable option to lesser skilled marksmen." So now let's move on down and talk about a change to a Modern Warfare weapon, being the FAL, being that its upper torso multiplier was decreased from 1.1 to 1. To the dismay or surprise of some, our data suggests that the Assault Rifle Bravo from Modern Warfare is an absolute monster. The Assault Rifle Bravo will still be capable of achieving an extremely low time to kill, though that speed will now be locked behind an additional headshot. Changes like these align more closely with our goal to shift consistently acquirable TTKs out of the 300 millisecond range. Now the next weapon that was changed is actually the Groza, which its sprint to fire speed was actually increased by 15%. So they go on to state, "The Groza from Black Ops Cold War has not yet fulfilled the role we had intended for it. As a more bruiser oriented AR SMG hybrid, its slow base sprint to fire speed has continued to hold it back considerably. With this change, it will be able to more reliably contest some machine guns in short range engagements." And alright, so now we have the really big one that a lot of people likely want to know about, and that's the Krig 6 assault rifle. So interestingly enough, the maximum damage was decreased from 30 to 29, the mid damage is now 25, as well as the minimum damage was decreased from 25 to 23, as well as the weapon kick was adjusted, and they go on to state, "The vast majority of kills with the Krig 6 take place within its max damage range, which unsurprisingly is the longest of all Black Ops Cold War assault rifles. This change will affect most time to kill breakpoints with its maximum damage range by 1 bullet. Additionally, we have added a third damage range, which is a change we do not suspect will be immensely impactful, as builds that extend damage range could push the mid damage range out to nearly 100 meters, which is well beyond the average kill distance for the Krig 6. Though it is not all bad for the Krig 6. We have reduced some of the weapon's bounciness while firing, which we feel makes it more enjoyable to use." And alright, now let's move on down and talk about light machine guns. So interestingly enough, the Stoner light machine gun from Black Ops Ops Cold War actually had its recoil increased slightly, and they go on to state the light machine gun Alpha from Black Ops Cold War had already been an incredibly accurate LMG prior to the change, which added recoil control to the task force and match grade barrels. With a baseline increase to recoil and a reduction in the total amount of recoil control the aforementioned barrels offer, it will be harder to stay on target with light machine gun Alpha at longer ranges. So now let's actually talk about tactical rifles. So Tactical Rifle Charlie from Black Ops Cold War, which is actually the AUG from Black Ops Cold War if you guys are wondering, had its recoil decreased, which is really interesting, and they go on to state the Tactical Rifle Charlie and many other tactical rifles have remained out of the spotlight for nearly 3 seasons. Given that, we feel now is a good time to reassess their effectiveness, cognizant of the razor's edge of balance in which burst weapons exist. While this change will make the Tactical Rifle Charlie far easier to stay on target with, the reduction in effectiveness to titanium barrels remain intact, which heavily contribute to the dominance of the Tactical Rifle Charlie and M16 several seasons ago. And with that said, I know this may sound a little bit crazy, however the DMR-14 actually got changed, which I know a lot of you guys, if you played Warzone back when Black Ops Cold War was initially integrated into the game, you will know that the DMR-14 was easily one of the most broken weapons in the game, and considering that it got buff, you might be a little bit worried, but let me go ahead and explain. They go on to state, rather than outright decrease the recoil, this change is more of a rework. The DMR-14 has languished since its changes in Season 1, but has not been forgotten. Expect the DMR-14 to feel like a new weapon. Semi-auto weapon enthusiasts rejoice, as the DMR-14 may see a real resurgence following this change. So now let's talk about the M16, which its weapon kick was decreased, and they go on to state, of the tactical rifles adjusted in this patch, the M16 received the smallest change. This is partly because we feel the M16 is already in an acceptable spot for burst weapons. So now let's move on down and talk a little bit about the Type 63, which a lot of people have been talking about recently, and let me just say, it's been pretty significantly reworked with this update, being that its headshot multiplier was decreased from 2.1 to 1.58, its neck multiplier was increased from 1.2 to 1.58, as well as the upper torso multiplier was decreased from 1.2 to 1, and the lower torso multiplier was decreased from 1.1 to 1, as well as the weapon kick was decreased, and they go on to state, the Type 63 from Black Ops Cold War has become quite infamous recently, and for good reason. With a single headshot, time to kill could be reduced to 332 milliseconds, and with 2, a mind-boggling 166 milliseconds, a speed which only sniper rifles could compete with a time to kill of 0. This should be put into perspective how out of line the Type 63 was. While these changes seem extreme, a time to kill of 332 milliseconds is still possible, but it will require 3 headshots instead of 1. And actually, since we were on the topic of tactical rifles and sniper rifles, I want to quickly talk about the sniper rifle changes with this patch, and then we'll go back and talk about some machine guns. So, talking about sniper rifles, the Swiss K31 from Black Ops Cold War actually had its recoil adjusted, and they go on to state, we have improved the firing recoil behavior for the Swiss K31. We expect this change to go largely unnoticed, as it does not have a measurable impact on the weapon's effectiveness, but should improve its overall feel. As well as, interestingly enough, the ZRG 20mm had its recoil adjusted, and they go on to state, much like the Swiss K31, the ZRG 20mm has received some changes to its firing recoil behavior to ensure that it looks, sounds, and most importantly, feels like one of the baddest sniper rifles in Verdansk. And alright, so that's pretty much it for the sniper rifle changes with today's update, and now let's talk a little bit about some machine gun changes. So, talking about the Submachine Gun Charlie, which is of course the MP5 from Modern Warfare, and more specifically with the 10mm auto 30-round magazines, being that the maximum damage was decreased from 34 to 31, and they go on to state, this maximum damage change mirrors the adjustment to the base Submachine Gun Charlie made earlier this season. Additionally, the OTS-9 submachine gun from Black Ops Cold War actually had its maximum damage range decreased by 6.2%, and this is rather interesting as recently a lot of people have been using the OTS-9, and they go on to state, the OTS-9 might be a bit stronger than we would like, but we would first like to see how this change broadly impacts the weapon's viability. The OTS-9 was always intended to be the quintessence of barrel stuffing submachine guns, a submachine gun that was intended to challenge shotguns with their effective damage range. We believe it is achieving that, but its maximum damage range, while shorter than each other Black Ops Cold War SMG, might still be a bit too long. We will continue to closely monitor the performance of the OTS-9 following this change, and last but certainly not least, let's actually talk about the PPSH-41 from Black Ops Cold War, being that its weapon kick was adjusted as well as the ADS sway was adjusted, and they go on to state, of course, while firing the PPSH-41, the weapon could kick in a manner that would make it difficult to gauge bullet directionality. This is a subtle change that will make a significant impact on the ability to reliably line up shots. So yeah guys, as you can tell, a lot of weapons got changed with today's update in Call of Duty Warzone, and if you guys haven't already, make sure you comment down below what your thoughts on it, as well as personally, what do you think is going to be the new meta weapon to use in Warzone? I'm really interested in knowing your thoughts down below. Also guys, I do quickly want to apologize for the lack of videos recently. However, with the Vanguard beta happening this weekend, I plan on uploading a lot more, as well as in about a week and a half, I will be having an update video explaining certain things. So with that said, thank you once again for watching this video. I hope you went on to enjoy it, and if you did, don't forget to leave a like on this video, as well as subscribe and turn on post notifications, so that way you guys will not miss any of the latest and greatest Call of Duty news, class ups, and all kinds of things like that. So thank you once again for watching. I'm your host, Sleeper Jungle. I hope to see you in the next one.